You know, for centuries, this one powerful idea has just captivated millions of people, the belief that Jesus Christ is going to return to Earth. And this has led to countless predictions, this constant feeling of anticipation, and a history that's just filled with hope and, of course, some pretty spectacular miscalculations. Okay, so let's dive right into this ancient and really persistent belief. So here's the big question, right? What exactly is the second coming, and why, for 2,000 years, have people been so determined to predict the exact date? That's what we're going to unpack right now. All right, so before we can even get to all the wild predictions, we've got to understand the promise itself. And this is a really big deal. I mean, it's a foundational idea in more than one major world religion. So, what are we talking about here? Well, at its heart, the second coming is the belief that Jesus is literally, physically going to come back to Earth. And this is a core idea in both Christian and Islamic theology. We're not talking about some vague spiritual metaphor here. For believers, this is a real future event that's going to change everything. And where does this belief come from? Well, it's right there in Scripture. This quote from the Gospel of Matthew is a huge one that believers point to. I mean, it paints this incredible picture, right? A super dramatic, super visible return that everyone on earth is going to see. And that promise of a glorious final end to history as we know it, that's what really fuels all this anticipation. Okay, so this is where things get a little tricky. You've probably heard people use terms like rapture and second coming, like they're the same thing, right? Well, for a lot of theologians, they're actually two different events. They're related, for sure, but different. So let's break that down. Yeah, this table makes it super clear. The idea is, with the rapture, Christ comes in the air, and believers are like whisked up to meet him. It's supposedly a signless event, meaning it could happen at any second with no warning. The second coming, on the other hand, is when Christ actually comes all the way to earth with believers in tow. And that event is supposed to follow a bunch of very specific prophesied signs. And trust me, every single eye shall see him. And it's kind of interesting where the word rapture even comes from. You won't actually find it in most English Bibles. It comes from the Latin word rapere, which was a translation of the original Greek word harpazo. And that word literally means to snatch up or to seize, which, I mean, that perfectly captures the whole idea, right? Believers being suddenly snatched away from the earth. Okay, so if the second coming has all these signs, what exactly are they? This is the big one. For literally thousands of years, people have been looking at world events, reading the news, and trying to connect the dots back to ancient prophecies. So, what's on the prophetic checklist today? Well, people point to things that, just weren't possible until our modern times. Like number one, a Jewish homeland being re-established in the Middle East, check. 1948. Number two, humanity creating the power to completely annihilate itself. Think nuclear weapons, check. 3. The gospel being preached to the whole world at once, something you can do now with the internet. And 4. A powerful, unified group of nations in Europe. For believers, these aren't just random geopolitical events. They're literally signs of the times, prophecies being fulfilled one by one. And this whole thing, watching for signs, trying to nail down a date, it's not new. Not at all. In fact, it's got this long, fascinating, and sometimes kind of wild history, full of genuine faith, and of course, some pretty epic letdowns, which became known as great disappointments. I mean, this goes way, way back, As early as 500 AD, you had people trying to use the measurements of Noah's Ark to figure out the timeline. Crazy, right? Then you jump forward to the 1800s, and this guy, William Miller, gets tens of thousands of people convinced it's all ending. And when it doesn't, they call it the Great Disappointment. And then you have others, like Charles Taze Russell, who adjusted the theory saying, okay, well, maybe Christ's presence started invisibly, and they pointed to a new date, 1914, as a huge moment. And some of these predictions get really specific and personal. Get this. In 1814, there was a prophet named Joanna Southcott. She was 64 years old, and she claimed she was pregnant with the new Messiah, who was going to be born on Christmas Day. The really tragic part? She actually died on that very day, and an autopsy later showed she hadn't been pregnant at all. It just shows you the incredible level of conviction people had. Then we hit the modern era, and the predictions start coming fast and furious. 1988 was a big one. A book called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Could Be in 1988 became a massive bestseller, and a whole lot of people were watching the clock that year. Then came 1994. This time, it was a popular radio broadcaster, Harold Camping. He used his show to convince legions of followers that this was the year. It wasn't, but it wouldn't be his last try. And of course, who could forget the year 2000, Y2K? While the rest of the world was worried about their computers crashing, for many believers, the turn of the millennium itself just felt like the perfect, biblically sound time for the world to end. And Harold Camping? Oh, he was back in 2011, and this time he went all in. We're talking millions of dollars on billboards all over the world, with a specific date, May 21st, 2011. The campaign got a ton of media attention, and it doesn't stop. Just think back to 2020. With a global pandemic, widespread chaos, you better believe plenty of people were pointing to it as absolute proof that the end was finally, truly here. So, you'd think after all those misdates, people would stop predicting, right? Nope. Not even close. The waiting, the watching, the calculating, it is absolutely still happening. Yeah, this isn't just some weird thing from the past. The whole quest to figure out the prophetic timeline is alive and well. People are still digging into ancient texts, but now they're mixing it with data analysis and world events, trying to come up with new dates. Some of them are even looking decades from now. But here's the one that might really blow your mind. One of the most famous predictors ever? Sir Isaac Newton? I'm not kidding. The guy who came up with the laws of gravity. He was obsessed with biblical prophecy, spent years on it, and his calculation pointed to the year 2060 for the apocalypse. It just goes to show you how this idea has grabbed some of the smartest people in history. So all of this leaves us with one big question, doesn't it? After 2,000 years of this, of waiting and watching and guessing, maybe focusing on the exact date isn't the point. Maybe the real purpose of these prophecies isn't to give us a calendar to mark off. Maybe it's about something else entirely, like inspiring a certain kind of readiness, you know? A way of living your life as if any day could be the last one. It's definitely something to think about.